I hustle for my muscle, and you look me, son. Yeah, I'm going for all I can get. Kicking it at the top because I'm too legit to quit saying.
Too legit to grift. Or are they? I don't know. Talking about World Liberty Financial, of course. Is it legit or is it a grift? We'll talk about that. And how I'm playing it, where I think the opportunities could be, whether I bought any, whether I'm fading it. You probably have a pretty good idea about that. But too legit or too legit to grift? That is the question. We've got a lot to cover today, guys. I've been out. I was out in end of last week. I was down in Dallas. Obviously, a long holiday weekend. So a lot has happened over the last 4 to 5 days. Guys, this is episode 62 of the live stream. Very exciting things happening, though, guys. Not all is great in the economy. We'll talk about some of the downside risk as well. We're going to dive into the World Liberty Financial situation, what there is to know there. We've talked a little bit about that over the last month or so. We're going to talk about the macro stuff, what's happening with India in particular, and the tariffs, really, what the fallout could or could not be. And then in crypto, where is the money? Solana's been holding up pretty well. We've been talking a lot about Solana. There's another new Solana treasury company that hit the news today. We'll take a look at that. So there's 3 big treasury companies that we'll be keeping an eye on looking forward. And then, of course, what's happening in DePIN is some new milestones being hit. Some pretty big eyes on DePIN right now. I really do think we're in the right place at the right time. Guys, things are really starting to come together. And tomorrow I'm going to be on a live stream. I'll talk about that. Guy has over 2 million followers on X, and the topic is DePIN. The topic is DePIN and talking about data collection and AI. So the things that we talk about all the time, but to see some big accounts starting to give it attention. We had also Helium got attention from a really big account this weekend. So guys, the tides are turning. I think that DePIN is going to have its day sooner than later. So very exciting stuff indeed. Man, but you know what? Let's start off with a fun story, and then we're going to get into the World Liberty Financial stuff. How about this? How about the asshole of the day? Don't be like this guy. You've probably seen it. He's been all over the news, been all over the X timeline. This guy was trying to give a hat to this kid, and look what he did. He just stags it from him. What a dick. What a dick. And you'd think, so again, he's the CEO of a company. You guys remember what happened at the Coldplay concert? That CEO got caught on camera. Well, we're seeing it again. And this guy doubled down on it. When asked about it, here's what he had to say. The recent incident at the tennis match has caused a disproportionate online uproar. It's all about the famous hat, of course. Yes, I took it. Yes, I did it quickly. But as I've always said, life is first come, first served. I understand that some people might not like it, but please, let's not make a global scandal out of the hat. Just a hat, he said. If you were faster, you would have it. Oh, my God. Well, and then he went on to actually say he would sue people that made offensive comments or slander. Well, he quickly backtracked on that. There are reports, according to Grok, that Newsweek, Yahoo Sports, and others are now saying he has apologized. He's given back the hat. So, man, when will these people get it? Just don't be a dick. And if you are, own it. Don't double down on it. Like, what an idiot. What an idiot. Anyway, don't be like that guy. Don't be like that guy. That brings us to the conversation, though, of World Liberty Financial and my thoughts on this. And I think, a few weeks ago, I covered the holdings of World Liberty Financial. It's one of the great things about blockchain is you can see who's holding what. If you have the wallet identified, of course. So I think there's something to gain from that. But I think we need to be a little bit careful, guys. The regulatory stuff is great for crypto. The grift, or things that could appear as grift, not so great. And I think if there's any inkling of what the broader news is going to make of this? Well, take a look at these headlines, guys. You have, the Trump's World Liberty Financial token falls in the first day of trading, says Trump family profits, even with tepid launch. Trump family profits. Trump family amasses $5 billion fortune. Okay, Trump family share of World Liberty Financial grows to $6 billion. This, in my opinion, is not a great look. Okay, same with the Trump token. And I think that we need to, we take the good with the bad, obviously, but I think we need to keep in mind 3.5 years from now, we could have a change in office, right? Where the Democrats win again. And they could definitely attack crypto like they did the last term and probably get a lot of support of it. The more we see things like this, to give fuel to the people that are up in arms against crypto, well, this might not bode well for us in the longer term. Okay. And I think it's something we need to acknowledge. Obviously, we can't control the circumstances. What we can do is adapt our strategy. And in this case, I think we need to be aware that, in the next 3.5 years, I think we can make a shit ton of money. But I think we also need to be aware that, we could face some serious headwinds in 3.5 years. So that's all it is. That's all I'm saying is we need to adjust our timelines potentially, depending on how all this all plays out. But looking at this article, in particular, here's what they had to say. Then I'm going to go into how I am playing this whole launch. Personally, I'll be upfront. I completely faded this play. I have no desire to buy this World Liberty Financial token. It could pump. It could. But there's so many opportunities in the space right now. I don't feel the need to buy this token. I think we can gain some information on their holdings, though, and use that to potentially buy the underlying assets. But here's the article. President Donald Trump and members of his family saw their net worth increase by $6 billion on Monday in the minutes after public trading of their Ethereum token, where Liberty Financial went live. By the way, Ethereum gas fees went out of control during this token launch. A lot of people complaining. Another reason why maybe Solana could emerge. It's already emerging. Let's be real. Says this morning, where Liberty Financial launched trading capabilities, setting the token's previously undermined price at just over 30 cents. Since slipped to 26 cents, a little bit below that now. We'll look at the chart in a second. Said that that's a substantial jump, which initially sold to investors for 1.5 cents. So all the original investors are sitting on, a 15x right now, somewhere in that range. And then for 5 cents a token later on, says they raised $500 million from those sales. Now, says it's particularly rosy for the Trumps, who collectively own 22.5 billion World Liberty Financial tokens, according to a disclosure. That pile of tokens representing nearly a quarter of the project's total supply. So almost a quarter of the total supply is held by the Trump family. It's now worth $5.96 billion. That was on current prices. It's down a little bit since then, still massive. It says that it's held by certain family members. The identity of those members has not been disclosed, although we do know, of course, Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. And Barron Trump are all co-founders of World Liberty Financial. So yes, they're making a shit ton of money off this. There's no doubt about it. It does say that the tokens will be unlocked over time. There's a vesting schedule, but the schedule is to be determined. Okay, great. It does go on to say here, since returning to office, the president and his family have increased their net worth by billions of dollars via crypto projects, including World Liberty, of course, the Trump meme coin. So again, guys, the regulatory stuff's great. The stable coin bill, great. Okay. Well, not everyone thinks so, but I think it's better than, having a CBDC, although a lot of people are saying it's the same difference. But, the regulatory stuff from that standpoint, and I also think the market structure bill that's coming, great for crypto. This, not so great, in my opinion. Okay. People have differing opinions on this. But then you start to see news like this. Apparently the Saudis are talking about putting World Liberty Financial under their sovereign wealth fund. Okay. Sounds a little grifty to me. Just saying. And then you've got Justin Sun. We covered this. He's a huge holder, huge investor, It's a big reason why World Liberty Financial is holding so much Tron token. But he says he's not going to sell anytime soon. Here's what he had to say. He said, excited to share my thoughts. I believe this is one of the biggest and most important projects in crypto. We have no plans to sell or unlock tokens anytime soon. The long-term vision here is too powerful, and I'm fully aligned with the mission. Okay, whatever. It says that the circulation of USD1, of course, that is the stablecoin associated with World Liberty Financial. It has 200 million in circulation on Tron. So he's got a lot of reasons to be invested in this, guys. Let's be real. So, even though he says he's not selling, it has not stopped a lot of the whales from selling. There's some big sellers early stages, guys. In Coin Bureau reported on this. 7.72 million here, 3.38 million here, and of course, here's what that chart looks like, guys. Huge jump up, and then boom, looks a little bit like the Trump token. So there are people that are like, hey, man, I'm going to buy. This thing's going to go a lot higher. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. I'm personally not interested in it. Okay. There are ways that you can leverage World Liberty Financial in different ways. We'll touch on that in a second. But the token itself, zero interest. There's enough opportunities, in my opinion, to take advantage of in the crypto space right now. I feel zero desire to buy this token. Do with that what you will. You have to do what makes sense for you. Of course, there's news breaking right now that, the Trump token, who else might launch a token? I'll play this video and let you guys decide what you think about this. Everyone's like, oh, Gavin Newsom, he's going to launch a token.
Real prediction. I know we talked about the Taylor Swift prediction. The real prediction is, we're about to put a meme coin out. And you know what? Donald Trump, we'll see how well your coin does versus our coin. I mean, we're just trying to turn up the heat and trying to tune people into the absurdity.
Is it going to be called Gavin coin?
No, I think Trump corruption coin.
So I don't know if he's saying that in jest. To me, I don't think he's being serious. Maybe he is. It says, are we about to see elections fought on the blockchain? Well, I think elections should be on chain. Personally, I've talked about this. I think in the future they probably will. But will Gavin Newsom launch a token? I'm not so sure, but I wouldn't put it past him. Let's now talk about the real opportunity here, in my opinion. Of course, that is that you can see the holdings of World Liberty Financial. As I mentioned earlier, I covered this, guys, what was this? A little bit over 2 weeks ago. I dissected all of their holdings in this video. There is a chapter in there. If you want me, or if you want to see what they are holding in much better detail, I'm not going to cover it again today. It is there on my channel. But this is, a detailed breakdown of what they're holding. Of course, you have Ethereum is one of their largest holdings. The biggest now, of course, is the World Liberty Financial token at over $12 billion. But you go down the list, their USD1, that's their stable coin. You have Bitcoin, Tron. Of course, that makes sense with Justin Sun investing so much. And then down the list, and I went through all of these different holdings. We went through their websites, what each and every one of these are. But one in particular I covered that they were holders of, they did sell, that I think is worth covering here is Chainlink, one of my big five, and then AAVE. And they're using AAVE to hold a lot of their tokens for custody. But AAVE and Chainlink have recently partnered here. So very interesting stuff there. Guys, Chainlink is one of the bigger plays right now. We've been covering it for months. It is already up over 100%, but I think Chainlink has some serious legs. It's going to be one of the cornerstones of crypto moving forward and leveraging blockchain technology. Massive play there. Same with AAVE. AAVE is another great play, in my opinion. World Liberty Financial held both of those tokens. They did sell their holdings, but from a regulatory standpoint, that's where I'm looking. Which, obviously they're only going to be holding tokens that it has a bright future from a regulatory standpoint, in my opinion, right? So where are their holdings? Could they add Solana? We'll see. But keeping a close eye on this. What do they add? What are some smaller ones? This build on. This is one that we covered. It's up a lot, guys. It's a launch pad for their stablecoin. Okay, so This one, I think when we covered it, it was at like 48 cents. That was just 2 weeks ago. So these are the opportunities you can find by looking into this. Ondo is another one I'm a huge fan of on the RWA side of things. That's one of my big five. So go through, watch that video if you want. But that is where I am the only place I'm interested as far as investing, based on anything with World Liberty Financial. I don't care about the token, but I do care about what they're holding. Follow the money, guys. Follow the money. All right, let's do our AI updates. Hopefully everyone's having a fantastic day. Hopefully y'all had a great weekend. It was a nice long weekend. Got out and about in Chicago. Was down in Dallas last week, man. A lot of travel. I've got a lot of travel coming up in September, mostly on the weekends, so it won't interfere with my live streams. But man, take advantage of that nice weather while we have it, y'all. In Chicago, things turn pretty rough in the winter, depending on where you're located. Maybe your winters aren't so bad, but man, we take full advantage of the summer when we have it here. Let's do our AI update. I don't know if you saw this story. I read a couple different articles about it, but there's a Chinese engineer hired by Elon that uploaded all of XAI's entire code base to OpenAI. And then he left the company and sold $7 million worth of stock. Obviously, there's a lawsuit open here, but that's a big freaking deal. What's the fallout going to be from that? Man, that's pretty crazy. As you know, we cover it all the time. The AI race is heating up, guys. On the other end of things, we have Anthropic. They raised $13 billion at $183 billion valuation. That is triple the valuation from earlier this year. So we are seeing the money flow. And of course, keeping an eye on which company will have the best AI model. Well, at the end of September, we still have Google, very heavily favorited. But as you go to the end of the year, guys, X is making moves, man. They are making moves at 12%. OpenAI here with Anthropic, Meta still only at 1%, even though they're investing a ton of capital into it. Not huge expectations from Meta's AI model by the end of the year. We'll see what happens next year, though. But there is no doubt there are hundreds of millions of dollars going into just employees, hundreds of billions of dollars going into infrastructure. But one of the things that's not being talked about enough, and this is something tomorrow, guys, on the live stream I'm going to cover. I did cover it in pretty good detail earlier this year, but I think it's worth covering again. And that is the biggest limiting factor when it comes to AI is power. It's electric generation. You have all these companies building out AI data centers. You got the NVIDIA chips. Obviously, it's the main. You have AMD making moves too, guys, by the way. But the biggest limiting factor, in particular for the United States, is going to be power. This is a huge freaking problem. China has been increasing their power capacity, as you can see here. They're running circles around us. How are they doing it? We'll break it all down tomorrow, but I'll give you a hint. It's nuclear, it's solar, and it's coal. Okay. So the reason I want to dive into this is because there's some huge investment opportunities, guys. The U.S. is going to have to increase their power production. So from one end, what are those power sources? What do those investments look like? On the other end, though, I think this has a huge implication on DePIN and GPU projects in DePIN. Scott Bessent came out, talked about it a few weeks ago, about decentralized compute. Okay, and to me, that's the biggest opportunity in DePIN. I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow on another live stream, as well as mine, and why and just how important that is in being able to access compute at the edge when we have limiting factors, both on the chip side of things, but also on the power side of things. So tomorrow, we're going to be diving in deep on that. Elon agrees. Chinese solar is now expanding so fast that by the early 2030s, the country will generate more power from the sun than the amount of electricity the U.S. will consume altogether. They're going big on solar, guys. They're going big on all of it, though. They know the writing is on the wall. Power is going to be the biggest limiting factor in the AI race. China is well ahead. Elon agrees. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. Okay, so make sure to tune in. Let's talk some macro. Guys, India is getting pretty chummy with President Xi. This is the Indian president right here talking about his meeting with President Xi. Not just President Xi. He's in here talking about Putin. Hey, we traveled together to the venue. We had a great conversation. Well, of course, this is important because remember BRICS Plus, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They've got a lot of other countries joining that coalition. Their number one goal is to de-dollarize. They're getting pretty close, guys. India is one of those in the early stages of the tariff negotiations. They seem to be kind of splitting from Russia and China. That has very much changed. And of course, these posts are coming out right as Trump over the weekend was talking about how, India is saying that they're going to cut their tariffs to nothing. We have to take this stuff with a grain of salt now because there's a lot of these tweets that have come out that did not come to fruition. I will say we've made a lot of moves. We've had a lot of progress overall in the tariff negotiations. There's no doubt about that. But India is one that's been hanging out there. And I'm not so sure I believe this tweet. And this person said, I doubt they agreed to reduce tariffs to nothing. Must be another lie. I don't know. Let's see how it plays out. Until we see any official, release or any official word from India. Again, I take this stuff with a grain of salt, but he does go on to say, and this is true. He says they sell us a massive amount of goods. We're their biggest client, but we sell them very little. And India is known to have very, very high tariffs on imports. So it makes it very difficult for anyone to do business with them. So this would be a big win if it's true. But again, until we see official word from India, I'm not really buying it. And then we have the Indian president going out there meeting with President Xi, getting chummy with Putin. Not great, but maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it does play out the way Trump said. Other tariff news. Well, Canada's having a little bit of a rough go. Their economy declined 1.6% annualized in Q2, the biggest drop since the pandemic. We have a lot of countries around the world. We talked about this probably last week or the week before, but unemployment is skyrocketing in a lot of countries around the world. So, look, I think Canada recently came out. I covered it, but they're talking about really dropping their tariffs with us. So things seem to be moving along. That said, I thought this was very interesting. There was a federal appeals court that said the tariffs exceed Trump's authority and are unconstitutional. So this is going to be something we have to keep very close eye on. It said they granted a stay, allowing tariffs to remain in effect until October 14th, 2025, to give the Trump administration time to appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. So Trump went on to respond to that. Man, he's put some long tweets out recently, huh? All tariffs are still in effect. Again, that stay until October 14th. Says today a highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed. I said, if these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we'll see how this plays out, whether or not this holds up and what happens with the tariffs. But of course, October 14th, that'll be an important date. What happens with the U.S. Supreme Court will be very important in how this all plays out. In other news, we have commercial bankruptcies. Delinquencies. The commercial real estate crisis is getting worse, guys. Worse than what we saw back in the Great Recession. Of course, we saw big issues with COVID, and I think that's kind of what we've seen, a continuation of this, where people are still not going into the office. We're seeing commercial real estate really take a hit. Why this matters really is that our banks are sitting on massive unrealized losses, $517 billion. There is a substantial portion of that is, commercial real estate these banks have exposure to that are now worth far less. And that is unrealized losses on the books. So that's part of the equation. The other part, of course, is that a lot of these banks bought treasuries, long-term duration treasuries, because the Fed told them that they weren't going to raise rates that much. Well, of course, we know that wasn't true. The Fed then went on to raise rates faster than any time in history, and that downstream means that the bonds that these banks were holding are worth less. So they had to liquidate those long-term duration bonds. They'd have to do so at a hefty loss. So on the books, of course, these are sitting at massive losses. So between Treasury and commercial real estate, not a good picture for our banking system, guys, at all. Obviously, if there was a bank run, this would be a huge freaking problem. That's why we saw a lot of these, local regional banks go under over the last year. It's a lot of reason why they're keeping really quiet about that, because they don't want people to freak out. But that's a bad situation. Of course, the question is, okay, well, is the Fed going to lower rates? Because in theory, if the Fed lowers rates, that could help the situation. It could. Of course, that does not mean that the long-term duration yields are going to come down. Okay, we saw this last year. We'll talk more about that in a second. But one of the big factors about whether they're going to be able to lower rates or not has to do with this job report. This is one of the big reasons why, while I have been buying some dips and DCAing, I'm staying kind of patient here to see how this plays out, because September 9th, that's a date to mark on the calendar. Okay, so that's in a week. Mark this down. Of course, we'll cover it on the live stream. But Goldman came out and said they expect the Bureau of Labor Statistics to slash its payroll estimates for April through March, so that year period there. And they're going to release this data on September 9th. The expected reduction is somewhere between, it's a big range, 550,000 and 950,000 jobs. That's a potential wipeout of 25 to 33% of the typical annual hiring total. That's a big range. So, even if the market has priced some of this in, I was talking to William and Tyler earlier about this. They can't have it fully priced in because we don't know what the number is going to be. So if it comes in at the high end of this, I think we probably see some downside in markets. And September has historically been a bad month for markets. So that is why I'm keeping some powder right now, man. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens, because we have another flush out, another leg down. I want to be able to buy that dip, because it says if that happens, it'll mean the Federal Reserve has been setting interest rates based on flawed data. Okay, we're seeing this a lot where in real time, the job market numbers are coming out. They're coming out after the fact, revising them down. Nothing new there. But do you remember what we saw? Actually, I'll show you the poly market chart. We'll draw the dates here. But it says, in other words, rates may be too high, and the Fed could be forced to ease more aggressively this fall to support growth. That shift would likely fuel a steady rally in the S&P 500 is what they're saying here. Okay. So if we see this 950,000 figure come in, or maybe let's say we see something even above that, that could force the Fed to be more aggressive with the rate cuts. So this next week, September 9th, this is a big deal. What is the number? What is the number? And when they're talking about, the Fed could be making decisions on false data, we saw this in real time. Because this is when we saw the big revision in the job report. We saw the big move in the expectations from the Fed. That was when they revised the May and June numbers down by 250,000 jobs. Okay, so this has a real impact on what the Fed's going to do, obviously. That's a huge shift. We then saw the CPI numbers, right? Where we're like, oh, hell yeah, CPI looks good. And then PPI came in and dropped. So, we're seeing this. And then, of course, we saw the Jackson Hole Summit, Jerome Powell's words, boom, back up again. So the big shifts are coming as the real data comes in. And that's what that article is saying. The Fed is making decisions on incorrect data. Well, what happens on September 9th when we get some real data figures in? How does the market react to that? Will the Fed have to be more aggressive? Now, I said in theory that could help the banking situation if they drop rates. But what are we seeing? Well, the same thing we saw at the end of last year. In 15 days, the Fed will cut rates for the first time in 2025, yet the 30-year Treasury is now near 5%. We have rising interest rates as markets price in Fed cuts. That's not good. It's not good. We saw this last year. The Fed lost control of the bond market. They were lowering rates. We saw the long-term yields increase. And that is why I'm saying, everyone, Trump's out here. You need to drop rates to help the real estate market. Well, what happens if we drop rates aggressively and the 30-year yield continues to rise? And guys, it's not just the US. We're seeing this everywhere. All of the yields are rising. Why? This account does a really good job. Okay. It has to do with the fact that people are losing faith in fiat. This is the system adjusting. Governments need to borrow more. Buyers are being more cautious. With central banks shrinking balance sheets and banks and foreign sovereigns under pressure, the result is higher long-term rates across the board, even while growth is slowing. Even if the Fed cuts rates, it doesn't mean that it's going to fix the long-term, the 10-year and the 30-year treasuries. Okay, because people aren't buying our debt. They know the gig is up, guys. That's why gold and Bitcoin, gold, by the way, hit new all-time highs. Okay, people understand what's happening. The debt situation is out of control. It's a spiral. Okay, we're going to have to keep raising debt. People know that inflation is going to continue coming. Okay, as we lower rates, it's not going to go away. This is not good. The bond market, the global bond market, is breaking in real time. Okay, and that is why this was Scott Bessent came out. Okay, and is talking about they might declare a national housing emergency in the coming months. This was reported just yesterday. Scott Bessent came out and talked about this. Says the potential move is aimed at addressing the ongoing housing crisis characterized by high home prices and supply demand imbalance, with Bessent suggesting actions like standardizing building codes and possibly offering tariff exemptions on construction materials. Okay. The declaration would expand executive powers following Trump's precedent of 9 prior emergency declarations since taking office. So I think if we see the 30-year rates go up, they're going to pull this lever. Other things that they've been floating is increasing property taxes if the large hedge funds continue buying up residential properties. Because that's one of the big problems here. I mean, we have the hedge funds buying up property, but we also, let's be real, we have a lot of people that are stuck in homes with low mortgages. They don't want to sell their houses. So we have kind of seen a supply imbalance, but we're starting to see the tides turn here. We're seeing more and more houses listed, less and less buyers. People are waiting, okay? The sellers don't want to lower their prices yet. The buyers aren't willing to pay the prices. Something's got to give here. This could help. Tariff exemptions on construction materials could help builders. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this, and that could help the markets. But again, the lowering of the Fed rate doesn't necessarily mean that mortgage rates are coming down. This is a big thing that people don't understand. And if it doesn't happen, that could put us into a further crisis. That said, Adam Back, the potential Satoshi, he's at Sendtember, guys. So, he's a pretty sharp guy. September hasn't been the best month. We have Jim Cramer talking about September is not a good month. I think if we do see a pullback here, and again, next week's a big number that's going to be released by the labor statistics, we could, I think, second half of September see a nice rally. And that's kind of what I'm looking at right now and what I'm kind of expecting. We'll see what comes to fruition next week. But looking at crypto, I think Bitcoin has another leg up in it. I know a lot of people have kind of given up on it because, we have seen some Bitcoin whales sell off and buy Ethereum. But I'm not so sure, guys. I think we could see another leg up into that 140, 150,000 range by the end of the year in Bitcoin. There's still a lot of catalysts. And I think the supply squeeze is on. You've got sovereign wealth funds. You've got countries. You've got freaking pension funds, individual investors, treasury companies. The buying is exceeding the selling in such a big way. I think we have another leg up here. Okay. We'll see if I'm right. That's my expectation. But what about the assets outside of Bitcoin? Well, I thought this was very interesting. This is the commissioner for the SEC. Play this video for you. I think the audio, I got to reshare here for the audio to come through. I thought this is a very interesting video. And then, of course, we're going to do my update on Solana. There we go. Get the audio to come through for you guys. All right.
Well, we've already put out a number of statements from our staff in the Division of Corporation Finance, which says some things are not securities. Now, we are working on, as Chairman Atkins said, as part of his Project Crypto kickoff, to provide some commission level guidance, what is and is not a security when it comes to crypto. What I can say is this has been part of the Crypto Task Force's efforts from day one of this year. Is, we took a position which I objected to. I put out many dissents objecting to it, with this idea that every crypto, with the exception of Bitcoin, which is what our former chairman Gary Gensler testified before Congress, was a security. No, we have this whole framework. We weren't applying it properly. We said, we're going to do this. That was what the Crypto Task Force started doing. That's why they held a series of roundtables. Well, we've already put out 8.
And that is, of course, going to be the market structure bill. And the big takeaway there is, there was this idea under Gensler that anything that wasn't Bitcoin is going to be a security. It seems like the tide is shifting there. And I think the market structure bill is going to be absolutely critical for all these other assets. If we get some clarity here, and it will happen, it's just a question of when is that bill going to get passed. But once that happens, I think we're going to see all these spot ETFs get approval, which right now have been pushed out into mid-October. And that is where you're going to see the institutional money all of a sudden flow into all these other assets that they've been kind of waiting for now. Solana, I think, is going to be the big freaking winner to start with, but there's others as well. Okay, we've talked about some of them. I think XRP, you got to look at Avalanche. Okay, Chainlink, there's a spot ETF that just got submitted for that as well. So that's what the rest of this year, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. I'm going to be covering with you guys on a daily basis. Where are those next institutional flows of capital going? And of course, I think there's a downstream impact here with Solana that I think that money starts to flow from Solana into the deep end projects built on top of Solana. Okay, and that is why I'm very, very excited for what's going to happen the rest of this year. I believe we have some very bright times ahead. Again, the timeline is the question. Cynthia Lummis came out as far as the market structure bill goes. She said that she wants it to be on Trump's desk, hopefully by Thanksgiving. Be great if it was sooner than that. Okay, but that's the expectation as of right now. Does that mean that these spot ETFs are going to be pushed out further? Potentially. I haven't seen this reported anywhere, but for me, I think part of this is my own conclusion I've been drawing, but I think part of the fact that these spot ETFs are getting pushed out is because they don't have the market structure bill passed yet. I think they're waiting for clarity there before they pass them. Maybe I'm wrong, but that is kind of what seems to make sense for me. Up XE. Hell yeah, up XE. I added more this morning. Anytime we have the dips, man, like Solana has held up so well. Let's talk about all the catalysts when it comes to Solana, by the way. So number one, this is a big deal. If it'll let me share it. Hold up. Stop sharing. I think I must have 2 StreamYards open here. Here we go. We're back. We're back. Guys, Solana just had another huge network update. The most significant consensus upgrade proposal in Solana's history, aiming for 150 millisecond block finality, passed today. 98.27% in favor. Freaking huge. They have been upgrading this network so much over the last month. So this is a huge freaking deal, guys. Huge deal. We also, Solana Floor, by the way, follow this account. They cover all the alpha on Solana. Solana now has a total tokenized RWA assets at over $500 million, new all-time high. You look at RWAs, guys, yeah, I think Ethereum is going to win here. I think with Base in particular as their layer 2. I think Solana is going to get massive adoption. It seems so clear to me that this is what's coming next. You also have the stablecoin USD1, $100 million worth minted on Solana. Trump meme coin on Solana. Okay. You have in August alone, we had over $1 billion worth of assets bridged from other chains to Solana, 660 million of which came from Ethereum. So we're seeing the rotation in a freaking huge way. You also have, if we want to get any insight into what to expect with the spot ETFs when they get approved. By the way, the overwhelming majority are on Solana. There's other ones. AVAX Treasuries. I have a couple on mine, Bob. I'll cover them this week, dude. I will. So Solana, the Solana staking ETF, it's not, an official spot ETF that is like the ones that are going to get approved, but guys, they have a total inflow of $219 million so far. Just wait until all these other spot ETFs are approved. Like the amount of money that's going to be flowing into Solana is going to be freaking nuts. And as we've seen a lot of assets pull back over the last couple of days, Solana has been holding its own, still at $205. Guys, it is holding steady. And it's been on this nice upward march, this nice upward trajectory. I love it. I mean, it's a beautiful chart. It's a beautiful thing to see. And I think we're on the verge of Solana breaking out. Now, will we see some big pullbacks in the first couple weeks of September with the job reports, with everything? Maybe. Okay. Maybe we do. That's why I still have powder. I've been adding aggressively to these Solana treasury companies, but I still have cash on the sideline because we could see a pullback. I think we need to acknowledge that. I want to get the lowest DCA price that I can. Okay, average entry cost for these different treasury companies. Now, one was announced today. A little upset. I tried to add here. So you guys know UpXE obviously has Hayes, Arthur Hayes. You have DeFi Development Corp, DFDV, and then this one, the newest, Sharps Technology, closed $400 million private placement to launch its Solana treasury strategy. The total proceeds could reach $1 billion if all warrants are exercised. It could become one of the largest Solana treasury companies. So there's a new one on my radar. And I say I'm a little bit pissed off. So I tried to put it in order. I had an order placed this morning. So I think it was like $11.15. And I placed it right before this big drop off, and it did not trigger. And I'm a little bit upset about it. I'll be honest. Because this thing ran from 11.15 to it's 11.75 right now, man. Either way, there's another one. So I'm looking to diversify across these different treasury companies. I have substantial positions in UpXE and DFDV. There's another one I'm going to be adding to. I'm hoping it pulls back a little bit because I'm pissed. So I don't want to buy it here when I had it ordered for less earlier. Annoying. Let's see. UpXE, I did add more this morning. I'd have to look at what my average cost is now, but I've been adding. Anytime we have these dips, I've been adding. Because, guys, they have Arthur Hayes. They're going to keep adding Solana assets. I mean, look, this to me is my highest conviction play on the treasury side for Solana. And then you have DeFi Development Corp. So those are the big three, in my opinion, right now. I think we'll see more emerge on the Solana front. But keep paying attention to the catalysts, guys. The money flows. Oh, okay, up to 1630 now. Cool. So these treasury plays, Solana treasury plays, to me are obvious. And then the other ones, Bob said, AVAX treasury companies I'm interested in. XRP, I have some interest in. But I think Solana, in my opinion, is going to be the big winner here looking into Q4. What about DPEN? Because here's how I see this playing out. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. Like, what if we could have a huge global collapse? Anything could happen. And then maybe this all gets pushed out. But how I think this will probably happen, and how I expect it, how I'm at least making my personal investments, not financial advice. You got to do what's best for you. I think we see these spot ETFs get approved. I think we see the market structure bill get passed. Those are the two catalysts. Again, we saw the similar thing with Ethereum. Okay, I went through this like last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Ethereum, we saw the same thing, right? We saw the spot ETFs, we saw the Genius bill. The two catalysts came together. Ethereum ran. We had Bitmine go freaking through the freaking roof with Tom Lee. Okay. With Bitcoin, we saw a similar thing. We saw spot ETFs get approved. We saw the, expectation of the U.S. passing their bill, the strategic reserve bill, right? That news combined with the spot ETFs, we saw the big run up in Bitcoin. MicroStrategy had its big run up, right? I think this is what we're going to see with Solana. The spot ETFs, the market structure bill. I think we're going to see a lot of other spot ETFs get launched as well. So there's going to be multiple plays here. But God, you better believe, Solana is the degen chain as well. There's a lot of people holding Solana. If their bags get pumped, where's that money going to flow into? I believe we'll see deep-in projects built on Solana see some big freaking moves. One in particular, Geodnet. Guys, their GIP just got passed. Solana is now their official chain. It's going to happen September 15th. That goes into effect. Okay. They stand to benefit a lot from that move. They have an integration directly into the Seeker phone, by the way. But coming up on 20,000 stations now across the world. Their burns, 2 million burn in the last month, GOD tokens. So they are seeing very, very strong fundamentals. Very strong. And the price has largely lagged behind. $46 million market cap, sitting at just under 15 cents. One of my largest holdings. I think they stand to benefit a lot when the Solana rotation happens. Now that they're making Solana their main chain, the fundamentals have been there. That's also going to open the door for them to have centralized exchange listings, something that Mike Horton talked about directly, the CEO, on my Deep and Connected space. Okay, so big things coming ahead, in my opinion, for Geodnet, another project that they're directly connected to, ROVR. In fact, ROVR is using the Geodnet network for RTK purposes. Their revenue burns GOD tokens. ROVR just launched their fleet management system. Okay, for any of you fleet owners out there, that's got to be exciting news. ROVR token sitting at $1.1 million market cap. Are you fucking kidding me? Granted, there's not a lot of tokens in circulation, but guys, keep an eye on this one. Keep an eye on that one. I have a position. Full disclosure. What about Helium? What about Helium? You have a new all-time high on $22,500 worth of H&T on offload. Helium DC burn is reaching all new all-time highs. The metrics are out of control. 1.6 million daily users, 53.91 terabytes daily transferred, and 110,000 hotspots deployed roughly. The fundamentals again through the roof. All these, the good deep in projects, the prices have been shit this year. Obviously, we know this. The fundamentals are through the roof. Okay, so you look at some of the prior prices. What keeps us from getting there again when the fundamentals are stronger? People would say, well, deep in's dead, retail's not in. Follow the capital. If this Solana, rotation comes together like we're expecting, that's where the capital is going to come from. Okay. So that is why it's so important to be so dialed in right now. We have Solana Floor coming out with an article about Helium. Helium data credit burn rate up 194%. We talk about this like every freaking day. Will H&T follow? Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar. They break down exactly what we've been talking about. The fundamentals are strong. Talk about it all the freaking time. Data credit burns up. H&T trends down despite real world growth. Fundamentals are getting stronger. There's a price disconnection right now. What will happen? Well, another one built on Solana. Okay. Sitting at $2.52. All right. I have a big Solana, I have a big H&T bag. Okay. I have ROVR. All these projects I'm covering, I have exposure to. I have substantial holdings in. I'm getting ready, baby. I'm getting ready. I think the time is coming. And one other one. Oh, this video is not loading for some reason right now. But 375 Edge Data Viewer is live. Of course, we're talking about 375 AI. Another one built on Solana. Okay. See the trend? And that is, they're launching their token, I believe, probably November, because when I brought Harry Dewhurst, their CEO, on, he said, and that was like maybe a few weeks ago, he said like within 2 months. So that's one, maybe October, November token launch. And that's the trend, guys. That's the trend. The Solana Deepen projects that are freaking crushing it on the fundamental side. Will we see the price catch up in Q4? I think so. Personally, I do think so. Nothing's guaranteed, though. Of course, we need to always manage risk because the macro side does not have to cooperate, rather. And there are risks there, and we bring it up all the time. But I personally am very excited about what I think is coming. And then tomorrow, guys, I believe they haven't confirmed with me yet. They invited me on, though, but I believe tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Central Time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. He's got 2.3 million followers. Expect to go on their live. I went on one of his live streams already. I've been invited to a couple others, had some conflicts, but the topic tomorrow for this live stream: Deepen, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, and how they intersect with data collection and AI. Only what we talk about every single day. So it's cool to see that big accounts are now getting eyes on this stuff, man. And that is why, again, I really do believe, we are in the right place. I think, coming into this market cycle, I think we were a little bit earlier, at least earlier than I thought we were, and that's something that obviously, have to adapt, man, and have to come to that realization. Doesn't mean that we're wrong about things. It just means we're a little earlier. But it will come through. I think all the hard work will be worth it in the end, guys. And I think over the next 3.5 years, at least, we have an opportunity to make a lot of money if we play it right. Now, there's going to be a lot of volatility. There's no doubt about that. There's going to be volatility. But you look at AI, blockchain, Deepen, to me, that is where the biggest investment opportunities are. Of course, also the commodity side, the energy side. And we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. The biggest problem with the AI race is the power. But guess what? There's opportunities there as well. So that is the goal. Identify the opportunities and execute, baby. Appreciate each and every one of you. That's what I have for you today. I will be back tomorrow. Enjoy your Tuesday. Peace.